Good morning. This is Kelley Hobart from Alpaca Direct, and I'm here on Technique Tuesday. And we've been talking about the tubular cast on, and I went through what that looked like for last week. And for any of you out there that have never seen a tubular cast on, what it is those knit and purl stitches just flow right over the edge. And so you get a lovely, beautiful cast on that just looks great with your project. I did it on this one too, this scarf that I'm doing, and it just rolls right over the edge. Let me see if I can find, can you see the knit stitches roll right over the edge? It looks beautiful. I really like the tubular cast on. And so I thought this week I would talk about the tubular bind off and two different ways that you can do that tubular bind off and see which one might work best for you. If you're going to try the cast on, you might as well try the bind off. And every week we have a drawing. And for this last week, it was the lovely Kabasi Plus. And this is a cotton elastic and bamboo and silk yarn by Skissel. It's wonderful yarn. And this was the winning colorways, right? And for this week, I was thinking, what about some sock yarn? It's getting to be sock season where we start knitting our socks because it's nice and warm outside. So I thought maybe we would do this Malabrigo sock, and it is, let's see, we have two colorways. One of them is called Anniversario. That's the really beautiful multi-colorway. And then the other sock yarn is Reflecting Pool. So you guys help me choose, and we can send this out in the mail for next week. And the way you get entered to win is you post comments in the comment section. You can let us know what you're working on. And if you do let us know what you're working on, don't forget to leave the name of the pattern and the designer. Yes, Jim?
And where they're from, too.
Yes, Jim said, good morning. He would love to know where all of you are from and maybe what you're working on. We'd like to know what you're knitting. And again, these are the two colorways. Number 5, Anniversario, and then Reflecting Pool is the green colorway. But this is great sock yarn, and let's see what the content of it is. It's 100% superwash merino wool, so it's super soft. You can use sock yarn for shawls as well as socks. If you're new to knitting, a lot of people think sock yarn is just for socks, but it's not. It's for all kinds of stuff. So it's totally fantastic. And plus, I wanted to talk about socks for next week, so I thought maybe giving away some sock yarn would be great.
So several people are joining from the East Coast. So
awesome. Good morning. It's nice to have all of you here.
Pennsylvania,
and
New York,
great.
Maryland,
Awesome.
Michigan.
Isn't it lovely outside? Okay, yesterday it was sprinkling the whole time I was doing yard work, but I was working so fast. I was raking the grass and trying to get all those pine cones up off the ground, and it was really nice to be outside.
Tell them about Sydney.
Yeah. Oh, and Sydney had to be put in the crate because that little devil thought it was a great idea to chase after the rake and scream and yell and bark at it. And she made it so it was impossible for me to rake. So she ended up having to go to her crate. Although I did try. I tried to get her to calm down and realize that the rake is not going to kill her or eat her. Didn't work too well. She didn't like the rake. So anyway, but it was nice to be outside. So yes, I'm loving this tubular cast on and the tubular bind off. And there are two ways that you can do it. And maybe one of these ways will be something that you will like. So let's take a look at these and see what we can do here. And let's see here. So the first way is just a very, it's the Kitchener stitch, basically. And I'm looking for a little spare needle that I could use. And you can use any spare needle that you want to use. And this works great. It doesn't matter what the size is because you're just, placing those stitches on there for like a place to put it, not necessarily a place to have it. So because
what are you showing them?
This is a way to do a tubular bind off. It's a very common way to do it. So what I would do is I would put the knit stitches on one side and the purl stitches on the other. If you have to Whoops. There it goes. If you have two needles, it's better to do two than just to do one, what I'm doing. But I'm putting the pearls on the back and the knits on the front. And you see I got a strand of yarn stuck on there. There you go. So the knits go on the front and the pearls go on the back. And then you just do this all the way across. And then you're simply, if you're familiar with the Kitchener stitch, I got a little postcard here, so I always write this down for myself. It just helps me if I'm watching TV or something and I'm doing the Kitchener stitch, to just stay on track and make sure that I'm doing it properly. Yep. So there's all my knit stitches. And then what I'll do is I'll take these back, the purl stitches, and just stick them right back on this one needle. So I have one needle for purl stitches and one needle for knit stitches. And both of the bind offs seem pretty elastic. So either one will work just fine for doing the tubular bind off. So they say like 3 or 4 times around. So, but I have plenty. You want to have a long tail. So I think I just did mine 3 wraps around. They show you, a lot of places tell you to go like that and I have just about 3 wraps around. Okay. And then I'll show you my little trick for the Kitchener stitch. So we have the basic setup. Just think of this line is your front needle and this line is your back needle. So we go knit off, purl. Okay, and then you don't take that one off. And then the next side, you go purl, off, knit. And then the setup is, since you go 1, 2, 3, and 4, what you do is for the setup, this top setup would be going as if to purl, and this one would be going as if to knit. So this would be 1, 2, and then your setup is done. Okay, so let's see if we can do that. Take that. I have the yarn already threaded on my tapestry needle.
Why are you showing the Kitchener stitch for this?
Because it's how you bind off for the tubular bind off.
Oh, okay. Cool.
It's a way that you can bind off for the tubular bind off and have it work great. So we're going to do this 1 and 2 first. So we're going to go on in as if to purl and then 2 as if to knit. And we don't take anything off on those. And then we go, the real bind off part is knit off, purl on the front needle. And then purl, off, knit. Okay, and then knit, off, purl, purl, off, knit. And when you're doing it, you just want to have that yarn snug up a little bit. You don't want it super loose, but then again, you don't want it super tight either. And if you have to adjust it as you're going along, do that. That's fine. Okay. And then we go knit, off, purl. And on the thing, it specifically said, I had people specifically say that when you begin this whole process, starting with your knit stitch is the way to go. So if you're on where you have purl bumps showing, just go to the other side and then do the bind off on that side. Do you know what I'm saying? So that was going as if to purl, and then we're going to go purl, off, knit. Okay, and you can see how the bind off is forming. The knit stitches are going right over the top of it. So we just keep going, knit, off, purl, And just take your working yarn and put it right up there. And then purl, off, knit. And like I always tell you guys for the Kitchener stitch, if the phone should ring, finish the 4-step sequence so that when you come back with it, always know that you're starting at the beginning of that sequence instead of stopping in the middle. That's a good way to keep yourself from messing up and going, where am I now? Yeah. Oop, that one had a little strand of yarn on it. Yep. Off, knit. And then I'm not sure if this was an even amount of stitches or not. It looks like I have 5 stitches on the front, but when I bound off with an odd number of stitches using this Kitchener stitch, it still looked good. So a lot of times when you're doing a scarf or what have you, you want to, if you start with a knit, you want to end your scarf with a knit. So you're going to have an odd number of stitches. So I wouldn't worry about that too much. Let's look at it and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Normally with Kitchener, they say before you start, make sure you have the exact number of, if you have 8 stitches on the front, you would have 8 stitches on the back. But when I did my scarf, it wasn't set up that way because my ribbing started with a knit and ended with a knit. So it had two multiples of 2 plus 1. Knit, off, purl. And purl, off, knit. And then when you're doing it, sometimes you snag a little bit of extra yarn. But you can see how it rolls right around. It's perfect, all the knit stitches. Now let's look at, say, that was purl, knit off, purl, and then purl, off, knit. Okay. And then a knit off, purl, and then a purl, off, and a knit off. Boing. And then you have all your stitches. See how it goes right around the edge? Can you see it?
So what's the difference between this one and the normal one?
The normal, I'm just showing 2 different ways to do a tubular bind off.
Okay.
And this is one of the ways. And this is basically, it's using the Kitchener stitch. So if you've never done a tubular bind off before, but you are familiar with this pattern for the Kitchener stitch, you got it. It's nothing new. You already know how to do it. Now, let's take a quick look and see if we can look at this other method. 1 second here. I want to make sure. But you can see on mine, I had an odd number of stitches. And you could see my knit stitches went all the way over the top. And they look beautiful. It looks perfect. So I'm not sure exactly why they said you have to have an absolute even number of stitches, but it seems to work all right, even if you don't have an even number of stitches. So I wouldn't let anyone stick you in a box. Give it a try and see if you like it. So on this one, again, we'll just gently wrap 1, 2, and 3. And then we cut it. Boing.
This is another way.
This is the other way. And the other way, this one is very similar to a Kitchener stitch as well. But what it has is it has a, you're doing it on one of your circular needles. You're not putting it on 2. So on this one, it is a type of a sewn bind off using a tapestry needle. So the first thing that it tells you to do is you take this one, the first stitch, you go in as if to knit and you take it off your needle. And then you snug that up tight. Okay, that's the first one. Then you go in as if to purl on the second stitch through the front, going as if to purl. Okay. I'm following my recipe because I don't have this memorized yet because it is more, different than what I'm used to. So, so I went into the second stitch and then you go into and enter it from the front. Okay. And then this one, you take this one, going as if to purl, and you take it off your needle. Okay. Then you go into this second stitch as if to knit, like that. And let me show you, you don't have to do it like that if you find it too difficult to do it that way. So that is the repeat. You go in as if to knit, take it off your needle, okay? And we'll see what this is looking like here after a little bit, okay? So I went in as if to knit, then I go in as if to purl on the second stitch. Then I go in the first one, I stitch, and I go in as if to purl and take it off the needle. Now, I'm just looking to see how this is. It looks kind of funky. Yeah. Okay. So this one is go, and then it says you go through this second stitch, going, and here's the other way that you can do it. You can go straight through. When you have to go into this one as if to knit, you can just bring your yarn all the way through between the two stitches and come back as if to knit. So now let's see. So that one was that repeat. Okay, then we're going to do a knit off. See, my yarn doesn't look like it's lining up. Let's see. Okay, so let's do this again. How can we do this again? All right, let's look at it and see. Well, let's see if I can take this out and see why it's not. You should be able to. Those knit stitches should line up. Hey, if any of you are out there working on, have done this before, go ahead and post comments in the comment section if you can figure out what it is that's off. I'm going to go back and see if I can do it again. Because it's very much like it's also like the Kitchener stitch. The only thing that I found that was different was the fact that you went in from behind to grab. Oh, do you think it's maybe I didn't start with a knit stitch? We could look at it and see. If it didn't start with a knit stitch, it might be a problem. Let me look and see as soon as I get this taken out. So you can see on these things, sometimes you have to use trial and error. And if you're using a new technique, if you make yourself a little swatch like I have right here, and you don't actually use your project until you're sure that you have the look that you're going for and you understand what it is that you're doing, I would say lots of times I learn new skills by doing little samples. Don't you think, Jim? Oh, yeah. It's a good way to do it. Okay, so that one was the knit off, and we know that was a good one. Oh, right. Do you see how that's a purl stitch? That might be it. That might be our problem. Let's look at it and see. This is a purl stitch. So I'm going to go back in here, take this off, and I will just purl. Okay. So this one right here, if you look, this one is a knit stitch. So let's look and see if we get it right. So that one was a purl. Actually, I'll slip that one since it has a slip stitch edge on it. So I'm just going to work over to this other side and see if that was the problem. Maybe on this technique, we need to start with a knit stitch as well as the other one. Since it is very similar to the, now I may not be able to do the whole thing in the Kitchener, but I just want to see if it lines up. Let's take a look and see. Very interesting. Sometimes you just don't know until you try it. So that one, this last one is a purl. So on the next side is going to be a knit. Okay, now, oops, we don't have a lot of yarn left to work on, but we'll just do a few stitches and see if it works. Okay, so we'll thread our darning needle on here. And, oh, come on. My darning needle has a small eye on it. There you go. Okay, now let's look at it and see what we got. So our pattern is go in as if to knit and take it off. Tighten that first stitch up a little bit. Then purl into the second stitch. Go into the second stitch, purl. Okay? And we're doing that from the front. Then on this one, we're going to purl off. And then, remember how we have to go from behind? Go through this next one and go as if to knit. All right. Then the first one is knit off, go into the purl one, and then go into the first purl one, and we take that off, and then we go into the knit. Let's just bring that all the way through and then go in as if to knit. Then let's go to the next one. We're going to do it one more time and then let's look. Knit off, and then the next one is a purl, and then a purl off, and then we go into the next one, flip that all the way through, and then we go in as if to knit. Okay, and then the first one, now let's look and see what we got. Do we have knit stitches? By golly gee, we do. See those knit stitches? How they flow right over the top? Let's do it, I have a little tiny bit more yarn. Let's try it a little more. I think that was the key. We needed to start with a knit stitch, and we started with a purl. Knit, off, purl,
How would you know that?
purl, because it didn't wrap around the knits. They weren't lining up. And the whole idea is that the ribbing flows over the top of the edge. If it doesn't flow over the top of the edge, then why bother doing it? Right?
Linda says instead of using a darning needle, she uses double points.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, now let's take a look at this and see if it goes over the edge. Yes, by golly gee, it does. See these knit? That's a knit stitch. How it goes right over the top of the, and right over. Yeah. So that was it. I guess last time I got lucky and I did it, and it turned out perfect when I did it. I never had that problem. Of course, I never tried to do that technique on the purl side, where it started with a purl. So in both of the techniques, don't forget to start on the side that has the knit one, purl one, not the purl one, knit one. Otherwise, things will be off. Okay, so for this next week, I thought I would work on socks, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to be working on. I think I found a slip stitch pattern that I'm really liking, and I want to use up bits of small amounts of yarn that I have in my stash. So that's going to be fun.
Some people just joined late.
Yeah, so for any of you who would like to vote, if you can help me out, and you can post comments in the comment section. We have this one. This color is Anniversario.
Red or red?
It's not red. It's pink.
Okay.
Boys are so colorblind. Okay, and then the blue is Reflecting Pool.
And that's Malabrigo, right?
Yes, it's Malabrigo sock. If you haven't tried Malabrigo sock, it's 100% superwash merino. Fantastic. It's a lovely hand-painted yarn. I love this yarn because not only is it beautiful, but it's reasonably priced for a hand-painted yarn.
And we're getting more in.
Yes, and we're low in stock right now, but we will have more. Everything, comes and goes so fast. So let's look and see. For this week, the winner gets this lovely Kabasi Plus, which is a cotton, bamboo, silk, elastic, and nylon blend. And it's from Haiku or Skacel, the Skacel Yarn Company. They have top quality yarns. They're fantastic. So let's see who the winner is. All right. Okay. Mary Miller. Mary Miller. Yay, congratulations. You won some lovely Kabasi Plus. You can make yourself a scarf that's similar to mine if you would like. And mine, I just made up the pattern and I love the project. So I'm trying to use stash and all that and support Ukraine. So this is beautiful yarn. So all you have to do, Mary, is contact us at customer service at Alpaca Direct and give us your shipping address, and we can get this lovely yarn out in the mail to you. And it would be enough for you to be able to do a nice scarf with it. It's 177 yards per skein, and it's nice, thick worsted weight. It's a lovely yarn. Don't be afraid to stick this yarn on a nice big needle. I have used it on number 8 needles with no problem at all, even though on the back it says 6 or 7 needles, but it's great yarn. All righty then. So, and like I said, next week I will be talking about socks. So I hope all of you have a great week, and I will see you next Tuesday.